Alright guys, so picking up from where we left off in my last video, you should have what looks like the beginnings of a room here, uh, using a photograph of some natural environment. Clouds work perfectly well here, and I think this is looking pretty good. I've used a couple adjustment layers on either of the two side walls. One is to slightly brighten, one is to slightly darken, and I left the middle wall as is, so it kind of gives a sense of being more 3D. And the next step for my edit is I want to give these walls some texture and some character. And there's a few different ways you might go about doing that. And I think the easiest way is to use brushes that you can download, of course. Brushes that you can download, or photo. Either way are good ways to do it. But give those walls some real, I don't know, age. Give them some real, like they've been there a while. Give them some, vintage quality. Give them some I can touch and feel ishness. So where do you get brushes? Well, Brush Easy is a great resource. It's probably the one that I use the most. I think I have it up somewhere here. Oh, Brush Easy, right there. So I just, for example, downloaded this brush, which I might use for some like mossy feel. Brush Easy has all kinds of brushes, and grungy, textury type brushes are easy to find. So you can browse by category, and there's all these cool brushes that are sort of there for you guys. And brushes are neat. You can do all kinds of neat things with them. Very simple and easy to use. So you just got to click on the brush that you want, download it, then go over to Photopea and load it up. So for example, you can see I've actually got one down here in my downloads right there that I have not yet loaded. So it's sitting there ready to be loaded. So I'm going to grab my brush. I'm going to go to the brush menu. Let's try those ones out. Let's see what they do. And then I'm going to come over here to this little arrow where it says load ABR. That's a brush file. And look in my downloads for the brush that I just downloaded, and it should be there. And hopefully this won't go too slow. Alright, let's see what we have here. Come on, computer, move it. Alright, so that should be it right there. So let's go ahead and open that up. And just by opening it, it loads it automatically. Now it's not going to be selected. So what you'll have to do is go back into your brush menu, and the one that you just loaded should show up at the bottom. So here are a bunch of brushes that I just loaded, and it shows up here. And let's test these out. Let's see what happens here. Let's try this one. Yeah, that's kind of small. Let's make it bigger. I don't think that's going to work exactly for my whole wall here. Also, I want to make sure I'm working on a new layer. Always make sure you're working on new layers. I'm using black. Let's just take a look at what this brush looks like. Oh, actually, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I might use that. Maybe I won't use black necessarily. Let's use like maybe a dark blue. Kind of goes with my wall. And let's play around with a few of these brushes. Again, gotta go all the way to the bottom. Here's a different one. Let's see if we make it bigger. Let's see if we make it all the way bigger. It doesn't let me go. I don't know. I'm going to find out right now. If I click on my page and I use the, yeah, I can go even bigger using my bracket key, the squared off bracket key. That's kind of cool. All right, I dig it. Here's a neat little tip for you. You can play with the way this brush acts. I don't want to, every time I click it, it's going to be in the same direction. If I open up this menu over here, this is the brush menu, and here I can click on Tip Dynamics. And I can make it so that when I click and drag, the size changes from bigger to smaller a little bit by a certain percentage. And I can play with how spaced out the brush is. So position jitter, the more I move that out, the more it sort of scatters around. And I can even play with the angle as I drag with my brush. It'll sort of change the direction that the brush is. So that might be interesting to see. Let's play with that for a second here. See what it does. See, as I'm dragging, it's just sort of like, well, it's glitching for one thing, but it's moving the brush all over the place and it's scattering where the brush hits. So that might be a kind of cool way to add texture. Some of these brushes will fill your whole page in with one click. Some of them are really quite big. And some of my other texture brushes are like that. In fact, I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I've got some down here. I've got crack texture, and I've got this sort of grungy texture. Look, 3,999 pixels. That's a big brush that practically fills my whole page. Let's choose a different color here. It's kind of cool. Man, those bells are fun. And same thing here. I can change the angle of. I can click on tip shape, and I can say, oh, I want this brush to go at a different angle. So I can just rotate it around. You can see the brush moving. So you can play with how the brush works. And I'm just adding a cool texture layer here. Now the trick is then to put that texture layer so that it affects the wall. And watch how I do that. I think that looks kind of cool. Let's just see what this does, how it looks if I apply it to my wall. So I'm going to do sort of the same thing that I did with the sky, which is to say I'm going to use this free transform option. And let's start by kind of fitting it onto that back wall right there. Let's like just along the top edge of this whole image. Let's get this brush thing out of the way here. You can pull that out a little bit. And if it looks like too strong, don't worry, we'll tone it down. Just like I did with the wall, I'm going to use the selection tool, and I'm going to select this side right here. Actually, I don't need to get that much. And I'm going to right click and free transform, right click and distort. And I'm going to make this texture bend as if it is bending with the wall. So here I'm going to grab hold the shift key, grab that corner, and just bend this whole thing down. So that'll give it some perspective. And I'm going to do the same exact thing with the other side. So I'll select this side over here, and right click and choose free transform, and hold the shift key and drag that down. Oops, did not grab the corner. Grab the corner. Oh, I forgot distort. Okay, I gotta do the distort part. Distort. Now I can grab it. I'm like, why is the corner not going anywhere? All right, so that now puts that texture as if on the surface, just like the sky below. Now the trick is Command D, deselect. Now the trick is to not make it so harsh so you can see the wall. So what can we do? That we just simply lower the opacity. That works. That gives it some character. Certainly, you might try different blend modes out. What does darken do versus what does multiply do? What is kind of like multiply? That looks kind of nifty. You might try some of these overlay options. Just test them out. Since the paint colors I used are darker than the sky color, I don't think these lightened ones will do a whole heck of a lot. But you can certainly try them out. It doesn't hurt to test out what they do. So run through the gamut. Overlay, that looks nice. Because of the fact that I lowered the opacity so much, you might not see the difference quite as strongly. And the point isn't to make it strong. The point is to be subtle. So I did this texture. I had one from before. I could turn that one back on. And that even gives it some more character. Kind of like how that looks. And I have this extra clipping mask texture too. So all those texture things, you decide how much or how little you want. This is definitely a subjective thing. And I kind of dig how it's like darker towards the bottom. It kind of gives the floor some character. Let's talk about the floor. So the next challenge, once you've got your sky as your walls, and you've given it some dimension in terms of light and dark, and you've added some character and some texture, I think the walls are good for now. And now I need to figure out what the floor will be and how I'm going to apply it. So I've got an idea here that I'm not sure exactly how well it's going to work. So we'll see. My thought is rather than doing an ocean like I did before, I was thinking of something like this. So I've got this cool photo from Unsplash. It's a great website to get high resolution, good quality images. This photo is taken by Andrian Rubinsky, which is a nice photo. Nice mossy forest floor, and I think that will work. I like the angle and I'm kind of looking down on it. So we'll see how this works. So I've downloaded it already. It's living right there. Now I'm going to open it up in Photopea. Do make sure that you download the photos. It's definitely going to be a better quality than just copying and pasting, which we discovered in our last image. So now I'm back over here, and I think I'm going to, let's click on this layer. And by the way, when you open a new image and place it in, it's going to be above the layer that you're currently on. So in this case, I want it to go below the wall and kind of sit underneath. For now, I might move it up in a minute. So File, Open in Place, and let's see how it looks, if my computer will go. Why is it not going? Oh, it's thinking. I gotta speed this thing up. Alright, so there's my photograph. Click Open. Now, because it's going below the wall, it should automatically sort of fill in that empty space from the layer above. And therefore, it's simply a matter of, oh, this is interesting. Notice how the both of these adjustment layers are affecting that image on the bottom. And that's, well, let's figure out getting it situated first. So I'm just going to sort of hold the Shift key and the Option key and drag the corner. That will let me enlarge this image straight from the middle out, so it fills up the space that I want it to go. And I think I'm going to lift it up a little bit too, because I think I like the bottom portion, that moss right there. That's kind of cool. So I really like how that looks. And let's solve the problem of those adjustment layers affecting the ground. Well, that's a fairly easy solution. What we're going to do is right-click on these. I think this should work. And create a clipping mask. That will clip it to the layer that's directly below, that is already clipping to this wall shape. So therefore, that should only affect the wall and not the ground. Let's do that with both of these clipping masks. Oh, that's a little problem. It isn't doing what I want. Maybe the reason for that is because I need these adjustment layers above my wall directly. So let's go ahead and see if that does the trick. Move them down. And voila, it does. So yeah, we'll need these adjustment layers clipping as clipping masks right above my wall layer. And that actually works quite well. I like it and I don't like it. I think that I want this forest floor kind of coming up over the edges of the wall a little bit, so it doesn't feel like it's behind it. So I have to think about that a little bit. I think what I'm going to try first is applying a mask to my forest floor that is the shape of that empty opening of my walls. And then I think I'm going to move it above it, and then maybe kind of rough up the edges a little bit, so it kind of pushes it up above the edges of my wall. So let's give that a try. So here I'm going to click on my walls, and I want that empty space. In order to do that, I'm going to click inside this area, and notice that because I'm on this layer, that space is empty. So even though I'm clicking on the forest floor, it should just grab that empty space because of the layer that I'm on. Now that I have that selected, if I come to my forest floor layer and I add a mask, it'll only keep that part of the image visible. Even if I bring this image up above my... doggone it. I keep having to move these